Welcome back to episode 70 of the Grappling Growth podcast with me, Joe Terstory. On today's episode, I had the pleasure of welcoming on Andrea Fryrear, who is the founder of AgileSherpa. They're essentially an agency, a firm, consulting firm that fuses marketing with agile project management together to essentially deliver better results for businesses. They're working on some really cool AI innovations, such as essentially coaches that can productize their offering so they can help more people within their target market. Andrea is a University of Oxford alumni, which is really cool because you can feel her intelligence, her expertise, and her curiosity come out in this podcast. So she's a fantastic thought leader and inspiration for anyone, especially women who are looking to push themselves up the corporate ladder and fuse all of their educational acumen together. Enjoy. As entrepreneurs, we all experience challenges in our business journey. I'm Joe Terstory, and the Grappling Growth podcast is my attempt at documenting my entrepreneurial journey while building my brands. I sit down with fellow entrepreneurs, understanding how they grapple with growth. I hope you find value and enjoy. Andrea, it's a pleasure to welcome you on today.
I am happy to be here.
Andrea, I'm curious, what does growth look like to you?
Growth is pushing at the edges of myself personally, the business, experiences, just like finding the interesting edge and sort of poking at it.
Interesting. I've never had that as a definitive answer. So when you say poking at the edges, maybe you're talking about you've got your zone of expertise and you've got your stretch zones. So what does pushing at the edge look like to you then?
For me, it's the thing that jumped into my head when you asked that question was like an amoeba that kind of has little blobby things that are always kind of stretching out in different directions. And so there's times when you stretch in one direction because of what you need or what you're interested in. And then maybe you stay stretched, but maybe you pull that back and you go in another direction. So I don't think of it as like only up like a plant, right? But like out in a lot of different directions. To me, that's what the whole entrepreneurial and CEO journey has been like. Like there was a point at which I was like, I don't know enough about financials, all in on spreadsheets and modeling and all of that. And so like stretching in that direction. And I'm like, okay, I got that. Like, let's go in a new direction. So that's what it means for me.
Yeah, I was talking to a friend today who runs a business, and I was saying that I remember having a conversation with a guy in my space about 5 years ago, and he used all of these terms and phrases, and my jaw just fell to the floor. And I said to him, him and I have actually become friends. I saw him in Dubai a few months ago, but I said to him, "Hey, where have you learned this stuff from?" And probably stuff that you can resonate with. A lot of what he showed me was coming from Russell Brunson. So I remember literally jumping off that call, and I bought a collection of his secrets books. And within that summer, I think I read 3 of them, and that was it. And I think at times, the way how I think of it is, if you've got 10 rows to build blocks, oftentimes you don't just want to build one up by itself. You want to slowly build maybe 3 here, and then eventually it's kind of like they're built on sand, so they drop down, so you need to rebuild here, or you want to rebuild up here. And it's just a consistent case of curiosity, and I think something that I fall in line with. Just for the benefit of viewers, could you just give people a little bit of a background into you and what you do right now?
Yeah, so I am the CEO of a company called AgileSherpas. I've been doing that for about 8 years, and we live and play at the intersection between agility, so how you release things more quickly, borrowing from the world of software development, but then applying that to marketing. So agile and marketing is our niche that we play in. I am a marketer myself. So I spent the first part of my career doing project management, content strategy, digital marketing, and eventually ended up doing that at a software company where I saw Agile being used by the developers, and being a kind of very organized type A person, it appealed to me at how much more efficient they were in their way of working than my marketing team was. And so I started kind of poking at that idea and learning how we might be able to apply what they were doing to our work. And eventually enough people learned about what I was doing. I was speaking and writing about it. that they were asking me to teach them what I had done. And I went out on my own and became a consultant. And there was more work than I could handle. So I had to hire people. And kind of all of a sudden, I was running a company and have really fallen in love with entrepreneurship over the years and really love the power of that community and the ability for business owners to really transform the world in a lot of ways. And so I'm really passionate about business ownership and that part of my journey, as well as the marketing and the agile stuff these days.
Mm-hmm. So you harnessed, essentially became a subject matter expert within your space, harnessed everything you learned there, and then kind of was that the vision to become an entrepreneur, business owner, or did it just kind of fall into what you spoke about?
Yeah, it was pretty accidental, to be honest. I wasn't one of those kids that was like selling candy bars in the hall at school because I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to work for myself. So I had really thought I would be kind of a solopreneur and just be a consultant on my own. And that seemed cool and kind of good independence. But as the journey has gone on, I've realized like, the kind of old saying of if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. There's so much more that is available to me when I have a team around me. Not to mention you get to work with really smart, fun people most of the time it's amazing. Obviously there's challenges, right? Humans bring all kinds of messiness along with their brilliance, but I think it's really preferable to have a team for me right now.
Yeah, I can echo what you were saying. You spoke about you saw project managers, people working in agile frameworks, and then you saw marketers. Myself, by trade, being a marketer, what do you think are the biggest mistakes, basic stupidities that we come up with that you're like, "Ugh, you could just do this and this would be fixed"?
The one that I see repeated over and over again, and it's not just in marketing, but marketeers are particularly prone to it, is everything's a top priority and I have to work on everything right now. And it's this context switching problem, right? Where if I
Mm-hmm.
have an hour of work time today and I try to do 20 things, then I have 3 minutes to work on each one of those things. So obviously, I'm not going to make any headway. Not to mention how long it takes your brain to kind of change gears when you're working on one type of thing to another type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to focus. And it's really hard because there's so many things that we could and feel like we should be doing, especially when the world is changing so fast and channels proliferate so quickly. We feel very pulled in a lot of directions. And so being able to say, this one or two things are the most important, and I will work on them until they are done, and you can't stop me from focusing. Um, it's really hard. And I see a lot of marketers really struggle in that space.
Absolutely. You mentioned context switching, and I remember there was an intern who I had in one of our companies a few years ago who he was prolific at doing just as you said. He would somehow find a way to just continuously uh, move his to do list to the next day, and it was because he just couldn't focus, and maybe it was because he had or has ADHD. I'm not too sure. He was undiagnosed, but it was a case of him just continuously jumping to the next shiny object and not focusing on what was the priority. And I think there is a challenge that a lot of the times we we set something in the marketing space and we expect it to be the biggest, highest priority problem. Whereas if we looked at the 10 things that we had to do and if we kind of ran with the Pareto principle and found that, well, actually, if we focused on the 20%, that would actually be the biggest driver. And I'd really try to channel and work from the theory of constraints that we've got one constraint right now. Let's not solve the thing that's 10 steps down the line. Let's figure out what's the biggest challenge right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very true. And it's, to your example of the intern, he's not working hard, right? It's not that the people are lazy or bad at their jobs, right? They are not served by the process that surrounds them. And then if you magnify that to any kind of large organization where you've got stakeholders who
Mhm.
their hair's on fire and sales needs a thing, right? And there's just all these things coming at you that you really have to put up some strong guardrails. And that's what Agile is for, right? Is to put in these protective processes so that you don't have to say, I refuse to do the work that you're asking me because I'm a bad colleague, right? It's like this system dictates my behavior. This isn't my choice. I'm not trying to support you, but if I don't focus, I can't help anyone. So we capture the work, right? We visualize the work and the system does what it needs to do. But it's the only way that I've ever found to handle a high volume of work. I have a personal Kanban board that I use every day. I don't know how anybody runs a business
You have a
in any
personal
other
what,
way.
sorry?
A personal Kanban board, so like a to do, doing, done kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
And I will not have any more than two things in my doing column at any given moment. That's my that's my personal limiter of I just can't. Even though I will probably do 12 things today, I will only do two at any given time because
Hmm.
of the context switching problem.
Hmm. Hmm. And are you very tactful with you do your meetings between these hours, you do your deep work here, you do your admin in this time? Is that how you kind of structure it just to make sure you're not going from A to Z?
I try really hard. Some weeks it works better than others. But I have a lot of team members who are in European time zones, which means that I pretty much have to spend my mornings with them in internal meetings. And that helps me to say, okay, the afternoon is then non-meeting time to really put my head down and crank on stuff. So it's really helpful to bifurcate the day like that.
Hmm. Hmm. And talking about the business dynamics right now, what does that look like? So you mentioned you've got team members in Europe. You've obviously, I assume you've got team members in the States as well. What does your client portfolio look like? Is it globally spread or mainly in the States?
Yeah, we're pretty global. We tend to work with pretty big organizations, and they often have teams in different countries, and
Mhm.
so we are sort of spread out in where we're supporting people. Although these days, it's very different than the early days of the business where I was flying almost every week around to every place. That was the expectation is that you were on site with clients,
Mhm.
and now probably 85 to 90% of our work is virtual. We train virtually, we coach virtually, we consult virtually, and then we can be very strategic about when we choose to go on site with a client for like a key moment as opposed to every single week being with people. But yeah, it's the team's distributed. We've never had home offices or anything like that, so it's been nice because we can access the best talent, right? Agile marketing is a very niche space. And so finding people who are really skilled at both halves of that equation and a good facilitator in a virtual setting. There's not a lot of people in the world who fit those criteria. So it's nice to be able to find them wherever they might be in the world.
Mm-hmm, hmm. Yeah, and I guess if you stay nimble with your business and focus on uh, our businesses are online, so it's you've got loads of location-based advantages, and you can look at knowledge hubs throughout the world. Talking about knowledge hubs, would you say there's any really profound knowledge hubs that you found to find really good talent in globally?
No, not really. I mean, we have folks in South Africa, Bulgaria, Spain, several people in the United States, but no concentration even here in a
Hmm.
particular region or anything. Um, Everyone's so mobile these days, right? You can kind of be wherever you feel that you belong. So no real concentrations.
Hmm. Cool. And talking about the theme of this podcast, which I nearly forgot about, artificial intelligence. You mentioned you've got your own kind of coached Sherpa, which is really cool, and that's something we've implemented for a few clients ourselves. But talking about artificial intelligence innovations, how are you embedding AI into your business growth strategy for the next 12 months?
It's really become kind of the missing puzzle piece for me to effectively productize what we do. We've spent a lot of time building pre-recorded self-paced trainings and learnings over the years, and that's been a great supplement to live coaching time for us. But people want access to a partner when they want it, right? Not during the hour a week that we have scheduled, every Tuesday afternoon or whatever. And so starting kind of late 2024, we started playing around with a Sherpa bot, right? So we uploaded all of our content that we've created, right? All those video learnings and blog posts, and we have hundreds of hours of stuff in there. And then we started using it internally to support our coaches when they were working with clients. And then as it got better and better, and we were kind of eliminating some of the that's not the right word, hallucinating challenges, then this year I felt like, okay, this is strong enough that we could actually weave it into an online offering, and this could become like having a Sherpa with you 24 hours a day whenever you want access to this expertise. And I know that it's going to give you good answers, right? Because just sort of off the shelf ChatGPT or Claude or something, you may suspect this, but there's some not accurate information on the internet about Agile and Agile marketing, and folks who probably don't know what they're talking about, but anybody can write a blog post, right? And so this way you can confidently talk to the Sherpa bot and know that it's well trained and vetted, and what it's telling you is really strong advice. And so it's become, like I said, the missing piece for us to productize. And so we're really leaning into a subscription model now where you still get access to a live Sherpa, right? We have workshops that are run live with instructors, and then a couple of hours of human coaching. But then you have all the online learning, you have the Sherpa bot, you have proprietary data that we've collected over the last 8 years. And so now it feels complete, right? Whereas before I never felt like it was robust enough to really appeal to my client base. But now I think it's everything a client would need is now able to be kind of packaged up and delivered to them. I'm really excited because it's going to open up scale for us and allow us to help a lot more people without having to add headcount the way we would have before.
I had a conversation the other day talking about AI and these essentially clones, these bots that are just the sum of all parts of your organization that you can deploy. And this conversation stemmed from the therapy space, so psychotherapy, psychology, and that's probably the most sensitive place that you could look at the implementation of these bots. But the thinking was, and I was talking to a therapist about this, and we were discussing how maybe this would disrupt the market. And we concluded that it'd be a really good thing because the people who might be using these bots can't afford therapy services. So that's the bottom of the market entry point that people who don't have the means to go to therapy can go to. So that helps and saves a lot of people who might be in really bad states. So then you look at how that can be used there, and if there's a great use case there, and that's kind of validated because it's so sensitive, healthcare, wellness stuff there, implementing that within your business is, as you said, it allows for a greater level of scale. So clients who might not be able to afford one-to-one services with yourself or team members, there's a lower rudimentary entry package there that, because it's got all of this IP, data, insight, learnings there, you can bring as a productized offering to the market, as you said. So with that, how are you actually looking to go to market? What's the strategy looking like there?
So it's very much a subscription type model. So monthly or cheaper if you pay for the year upfront. We've had an LMS that we've used for years. And so we've just been able to kind of put it all in there. And it's a really easy way for people to access the videos and the PDFs, and the Sherpa bot, is embedded within that same system. So it's swipe your credit card one time, right? And then it's all unlocked for you. And you schedule your coaching through that platform. You attend the workshops through that platform. So it's been a nice one-stop shop for us. And it's really thinking about it as it's very SaaS-like, right? Of just a subscription model, and keep it forever, hopefully, right? We're strategizing now about how to keep adding more and more value to it so that it's very sticky and you couldn't possibly imagine, ever being without this support network, as opposed to just an online learning course that you watch one time and then leave behind.
Hmm. Hmm. Cool. So taking a little bit of a drift away, we mentioned this before, your time at Oxford. Could you tell me more? Could you share a bit more?
Yeah, so I did my master's degree at Oxford. St. Catherine's was my college. It really was an amazing year. One of my lifetime highlights. I loved being a student there. I'm a very big nerd, I loved learning. I loved school. So just being kind of immersed in that environment for a year was beautiful and awesome. My degree is in women's studies, so it's not super applicable to what I do now, but just I think one of the things that I really learned in school was like how to learn. And so how to investigate and how to critically explore new ideas and not just take things at face value, but go and suss them out for myself. And that's really what the learning style was there, right? It was very small classrooms, one to one type instruction with professors, much more so than, school undergrad in the States was bigger classes, right? And not as much one to one time. So having somebody push you, right? And say, why do you think that that's the answer? And how did you arrive at that conclusion? Like,
Hmm.
justify your thinking to me was a bit of like, oh, okay, let's do that. And that continues to be something that I have to do all the time, right? I make very big strategic decisions for the organization and be able to say, can I justify the logic behind this productization move, right? And can I validate that that is a viable path for us? Is yeah, something that I think internalized during that time, and still serves me really well.
Hmm. I studied a master's at the University of Birmingham, so not quite as good as the University of Oxford, but I think that was the biggest thing. I think I had 6 hours of contact time a week. I would just be there, and I was like, okay, I was already used to it, but I think you just learn how to. I could maybe analogize it. You're just thrown into a house with nothing in there, and they're not telling you you need to furnish this. It's just, or they would just say furnish this, and you just think you're not asking, well, what's the budget, or you're just figuring out, okay, this is the parameter, this is what I can do, and I'm going to see what I can come up with by the end of the year. And at that time, that's when I started my business actually. So it was fantastic because I think without that bandwidth to think and also think, and I think running a business and a master's PhD to another level is they're very similar because they just give you this canvas and they say it's whatever you want it to be, and then going into really growing a business, you start to actually think of what gives me leverage, what is just a nice to have, and what are the things that I need to think about for the future. So talking about books and being a massive nerd, and I can see a few books behind you. What are three really profound business books that you've read that you could recommend to the audience?
Oh, you mentioned theory of constraints, and the goal, I think, is just phenomenal. It's a fun book to read because it's sort of fictionalized. It's not as dry as some business books, but Eli Goldratt's The Goal. Love, love, love.
So
Um,
what's the name of the book?
the Goal.
Okay, literally the
GOAL.
book.
Yeah.
Okay.
think it's I think it's over there somewhere. Yeah. So that one's really great. That's the origination of the theory of constraints, right? Was the goal, and it's all centered around more true physical, like manufacturing kind of scenarios, but you can extrapolate, uh, waste reduction and productivity and bottleneck mitigation and things, for knowledge work through it. So that one's a big one for me. Radical Candor was a pivot point book for me. I spent a lot of my early entrepreneurial journey like avoiding hard conversations and being like, I'm going to strongly imply that I want you to do this thing and I'm going to hope that you figure it out.
Mm.
Um, but that book really helped me understand that that is not kind necessarily to the person on the other end because they don't have clarity about the expectations, and then I would get really frustrated, right, if they weren't doing what I thought I implied strongly enough that they should do. And so really thinking about, this is actually caring way to approach your team, is to be candid and open, and you have to come at it from a place of empathy. But yeah, that one's been great. um,
You sorry to interrupt, but you've just hit something that I've had a situation with a team member now for a little while where I've tried to very very subtly imply what I've wanted to get done several times now, and it's been probably for about 6 weeks, and it's been, oh hey, and I actually have a meeting scheduled with him tomorrow, so I think I'm just going to be very, again, in an empathetic fashion, but just say to him, hey, this is what I want done, and this is why I want it done, and I'm going to do some research tonight. It's just to how to live it a little bit better. But as you said, it's instead of assuming, because for me, it's got to a point where I'm getting a little bit frustrated. Where, hey, I kind of implied that I wanted this done. I kind of said, well, now it's a case of we need this done, and as you said it, and I think this is where quite a few partnerships and relationship break down. It's based on assumptions and a lack of communication, whereby saying, well, I thought, and when you start to say I thought, that's typically when the relationship's too late.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a hard habit to get into, right? Because you just, especially if it's something really prickly or like an
Mm,
uncomfortable situation, it's easier to be like, maybe it'll just go away and maybe it'll just resolve itself. But in my experience, it will be much worse when you get to that point. So,
yeah, it's like um, it's like the psychotherapist analogy of, if you throw smelly clothes in the corner of your room and then just cover it up with a blanket, but it's still there. And if you just start slowly putting additional things underneath there, well, as time goes on, that pile is going to get bigger, and more chronically, it's going to start to smell a lot worse.
yeah.
And just because you've thrown it in the corner doesn't mean that you've actually addressed it. And I think those analogies work so well within business that if you don't actually address the root cause of an issue soon enough, then they become real foundational problems within your business and become very costly.
Yep. Yep. I had one of those, like the kind of first one that I put in the corner and was like, I'll just put a sheet over it and it's okay.
What
Uh,
happened?
I ended up in arbitration with the person that I did not like explicitly say, this is not okay. We need to stop doing this. And so then by the time I ended up firing him, uh, it went sideways, and we ended up in like a year of arbitration and discovery documents and depositions, and like the worst year of my life. And so no hard conversation is ever going to be worse than that. And so it's been a super painful and difficult, and I don't wish it on anyone, but a very great counterpoint to, I don't want to have this hard conversation today, but it won't be as bad as all of the things that I had to go through when I avoided the hard conversations for a very long time. And so once you go through that, it's very like, oh, well, it won't be as bad as that. And so suck it up and deal with it.
So, given the lessons and the hindsight bias that you have now, what would you say would be one or some of the biggest lessons that you gained from that actual experience?
So definitely have the hard conversation, right? Like the minute that you need to have it, and don't put it off for a day, right? Right when it's happening. The recency of an issue is important. And so to tackle it quickly, but then also really to trust my own instincts.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the things that happened during that year, again, we're back to me not taking a firm enough stance as the CEO of the company and not having enough confidence in my own leadership, because I'm a first time CEO, this first business I've run.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, it felt like I'm taking everyone's opinion into account and being very democratic, right? And that's how I justified it to myself. But ultimately, it let people walk all over me and undermined my authority in ways that came back to bite me. And so I think, improved as a leader, and am certainly more confident in the way that I steer the business. Uh, and again, after you go through all of that, you're like, ah, I'm sort of feel invincible now, right? Like I did all of those things and I didn't die. And so what else we got?
Absolutely. Andrea, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Where can people find you and what's next for you in the business?
Oh, you can find me. Everything we do is at AgileSherpas.com.
Hmm.
So we've got a lot of content. If you're interested in any of the Agile stuff I talked about, it's all there. I have an unusual name, so I'm pretty easy to find on social platforms as well. So I'm just, I think, A Fryrear on LinkedIn is my kind of end uh, for the
We'll put
URL.
all of the links in there.
Yeah. And what's next for the business is really the product, right? Is a hard pivot to a completely new business model in a lot of ways, and super excited about what the rest of 2025 could look like.
Andrea, it's been a pleasure to have you on. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.